We're on live. All right. Uh, Welcome, everybody. Today is the 16th, if I remember right. What- Oh, 19th. Excuse me. Monday the 19th. And today you're supposed to have all your cleanest stuff turned in. These questions I gave you as a little surprise, and I put online for the people not here. We need to get those in right away. And today's quote, number 21, a tree leans on a tree and a man on a man. Kind of weird. Audrey? Good morning. What's the difference between a tree and a man? Why would you? I'm just throwing out words. What's that mean? A tree leans on a tree and a man on a man. Can a man? I've leaned on a tree, and a tree hasn't really leaned on me unless I've cut the branch off and then put it on my shoulder. I suppose it's leaned on me then, but what do you think that means? What's the connection? Imagination. Almost biochemistry-wise, the nature of trees and plants depend upon each other to survive. Here's a good example. We have cherry trees, a couple of them in our backyard. And you have to have two because one does what to the other. If you only had one single cherry tree, you wouldn't have any cherries. That's why a tree leans on a tree. He's searching. Okay, a man leans on a man, or sometimes I depend upon you. I truly depend upon you being here to set the camera up and the videos we watch. So I'm leaning on and depending on you to be here for me. And sometimes you just can't do everything by yourself, can you? And we depend on other people in our lives. That's all it means. But the fertilization of plants and animals, bees, not animals necessarily, but animals depend on animals actually too. But does that make any sense to you guys? Look at it that way. They fertilize each other. You don't just see one single apple tree usually, or another tree is close by that can pollinate, and they cross-pollinate. We learned that from the store when we bought our trees. No, we already knew that, but so anyway, that's the quote. That's what it's about. I'm going to have to switch sides. The sun's blocking me. All right, we just want to get started a little bit on chapter 8 and Dante. And how you got your book open? How would you pronounce Dante's last name? Isn't that something? When you guys get it online, take a look at that. Allah Jirai. So that's why people just say Dante. I'm sure through history, that could be a good extra credit question for a test. What is Dante's last name and how do you spell it? But we're looking again at medieval times. Of 1265 was to 1321 for his lifespan. How many years is that, Audrey? He wasn't very old, was he? People didn't live long. No control over disease, a lot of other things. So you put 35 on there. 56. I'm older than that now. You guys are about halfway there. Okay, I want to read a little bit. I apologize. I did accidentally leave my personal notes. It's kind of hard. Okay, I'm going to read something that Dante, the author, has written, and hopefully we'll just read it together, and you can kind of get a flow. I'm just going to read that whole second page, 168. Dante's comedy is risky in just that way. And the comedy, the divine or the infernal, is a journey again. Before we start, notice how everybody, not every one of them, but close to every one of them, had some type of journey or some type of story to tell you. And again, this is how history was written down. Even the Bible's done this way. The interpretations and the story taking you somewhere. All right. It's so big that the careful order and pattern is hard for our modern minds to discern or understand. He's writing a big book, and we're used to stories that move simply from left to right. The comedy has depth, and outside the Bible, most of us aren't accustomed to its dimensions. The best advice I can give you, as the author says, is to read it quickly the first time. You will know you're missing more than what you're gaining, but you'll get what you can, and then read that selection again. And I'm going to practice that with you. This time, look up some of the unfamiliar peoples and their works. The third time you try it, try reading the lines aloud and let the sound move you. And I'm going to do the cantor sound, it's the rhythmic of this. Focus on a single line you want to understand. The fourth time through and read until you understand. Sounds easy, but it isn't. But it does work. The comedy is an entire Christian worldview. Okay, that would be a note about the comedy. It isn't the only possible Christian worldview because no human book could contain the whole view. It combines the best science, theology, poetry, politics, psychology from the age in which it was written. That would be a note factor for you if you wanted to take any notes about the comedy early. Those two lines, there's two things you could copy. That means part of it, or parts of it, are wrong. But even when wrong, it stimulated in others a thinking that produced modernity. That's a term you need written down, modernity. And you should be able to just say it right off, not the word, but what it means, modernity. Think about what that would mean, because you're going to have to do that in Dante's comedy, Inferno. Dante may get details incorrect, but as a Christian, he gets the big picture gloriously right, the big picture. He knows history is tragic, but that it ends in a wedding between Christ and his church. And we could go probably further and say between Christ and his followers, which are us here in this room and out there in the world. History is therefore truly a comedy. Note, in this dark and tragic world, we sometimes forget the good news. It is love that moves the heavens and the further stars. Get lost in Dante and let love find you. Now, let's go back to that sentence right above. History, therefore, is truly a comedy. Okay, if we look at it from my instructions, everything in history that we've covered, or we're making history ourselves, by the way. We're live and we're moving. It's a comedy in that all the good things, all the bad things, all the right things, all the way it should be and the way we think it should be is a continuous story. In order to get through the bad parts, you got to think of it as a comedy. I think of it, sometimes I get so frustrated with myself and do things, I say, you talk to yourself, and you got to laugh at yourself or you'd never make it. And you got to have a sense of humor. It's really hard to go through life every day and not smile and just wonder, what was that all about? Now, that was just a lead-in to his Divine Comedy, and of course, this is not the whole thing in your textbook, but it is a lot of it, and we're gonna practice that for just a little bit. The Canto 1. Now, it just starts in the middle of a story. Here we go. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, where the straightforward pathway had been lost. That one to me is really easy. Think about what I'm saying. Okay, you're not quite midway. I'm past midway. That's what he's talking about. Midway upon the journey of our life. I'm going to say this. You kind of start, somewhere in your 30s, 40s, because our life expectancy now in the U.S. is in the high 70s, low 80s, let's say. Pretty safe. Most of us will live into that era. Again, midway upon our journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark. Okay? We journey through a forest. It's dark. You guys, I know you've done much hiking, but you've gone through forests and then come out, some beautiful scenery. But what does the forest dark represent? Bad things. It's going to happen. Where the straightforward pathway had been lost. So now I've got to take this path over here, or there's a log across the path, so I got to go around it and then get back on the path. And then, me. How hard a thing it is to say. What was this forest savage, rough and stern, which is in the very thought renews the fears? I can remember when I was quite smaller, I was always scared of the dark. I was also scared of the forest, especially if there wasn't much light in it. We didn't go hiking like it's so popular today, but we did travel through. When we went fishing and hunting, you had to go through, and that's what that reminds me of. So bitter is it? Death is a little more bitter. I added a little word there. But of a good to treat, which there I found, speak will I of other things I saw there. I cannot well repeat how there I entered, so full was I of the slumberer at the moment in which I had abandoned the true way. Okay, what do you think? You've journeyed into the forest, and you saw the savage, the rough, and the stern. Also, you were treated to some good things. Maybe you saw a deer off on the side. Speak, I will, of other things I saw. So, make any sense to you? So think. I cannot repeat how there I entered. So full was I of the slumber of the moment. In other words, the things around me that surrounded me on this journey, I was able to relay to you guys and tell you about some of the things. So think about me telling you stories that I do all the time. Well, this is how I looked at it and how I saw things. See, it's the same type of thing, except we're looking at a time in history when he was alive and writing about it. And this is the way they wrote in those days instead of our current English style that we have. Is this helping at all? Help you understand? Because you guys are going to read a couple here in a minute and then tell me. Okay, I'm at the fourth one. But after I reached a mountain's foot. At that point where the valley terminated, which had with consternations pierced my heart, sternations, upon I looked, and behold its shoulders, vested already with that planet's rays, which leadeth others right by every road. Okay, we got to go back. See if you can analyze this. Then it's going to be your turn. But after I reached a mountain's foot, do you know what that is? You know, the trail leads, all of a sudden you're at the base of the real ascending mountain. We're going to give it a path or a trail. At that point, the valley terminated in, it became very steep. The valley ended, and I began my journey up, which had pierced my heart, meaning, what a beautiful sight. If I turned around and looked, I might have saw some of the valley beneath me, even though the journey was uphill. But when I got to the foot of the base of the real mountain climb, upon I looked, and behold its shoulders, just terminology, vested already with the planet's rays. What's the planet's rays? Huh? The light from the sun. You've probably seen a lot of it on your hikes. Might be a little foggy, a little cold, or you walked a path that I saw one of your pictures, and there's the light coming through, shadows. That's all that means. Which leadeth others right by every road. In other words, it's so beautiful. You've told me, you gave me pictures of it. You've been there and said, you got to go on this hike. It's just gorgeous. That's all it is on every road, right by every road. All right, Cody, you're gonna read until I say stop. See, don't read it fast. Just try to read it. Okay. Yeah. Then there was, and I ought to just give you this. Okay. Okay, class, you're going to have to read it. And hopefully you might be hearing him in the background, but you read it along the way. Okay, then I'll paraphrase it when he's done. All right. Good and loud, though.
Then was the fear a little quiet, that in my heart's lake had endured throughout the night which I had passed.
Okay, read that again.
Then was the fear a little quiet, that in my heart's lake had endured throughout the night which I had passed.
Okay, let's go back to the very first sentence. What's that mean? Read it again and then tell. What fear? What fear did you have? Maybe, yeah. That. Remember back to the beginning when he talked about the forest dark? See, you started out in the valley, going through the forest, ascending slowly. See how it falls together? And you had a little fear in there what you saw, because there wasn't too much sunlight yet. But as you got to the edge, okay, and you started your ascend up the mountain, so now that very first sentence is, my fear became a little less. Okay. Keep going. Throughout, and then it's a new thought.